I am Angela
That's
Dugan,
what I love.
Mr. Mallard. Join me as always, Mr. Chief of Morale himself, Bud Copeland. Bud, how are you this evening before we get
So the point being is, good golfers are a fucking dime a dozen, and we saw it in full swing that the line of demarcation between.
here? Are you ready, Bud? Are you ready for the players? Are you ready to make money? Are you ready to try to beat me?
I didn't do my homework this week.
Well, if there's one thing true, I know that it's Bud's been doing his homework because we have been crushing it with our picks recently here on the Divots and Pivots show. Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday night, as always, on the Fantasy Sports Corporation, kicking off Tea Time Tuesday. And it's major week, which means, as always, the major guest with the major, not guest, the major co-host. Sorry, I just called Drew a guest. I apologize. With the major storylines, as always, next to me here, Bud Copeland. What's up, my man?
I can't tell if there's like actual battles going on upstairs or it's tough, dude. Toddler's cruising towards 3 and
Good
she's
luck.
all sorts of takes right after her mother. Just full of piss and vinegar, stubborn as hell. It's karmic. But then there's moments where I'm wondering, do I need to get up there? No, you are right. Masters is over. It is another major championship. PGA back at Oak Hill.
Okay. Yeah, it's been, 10 years since they've been there, something like that?
Yeah, and I was just reading earlier. I think it's safe to actually come back to life. I was reading earlier. I mean, this is a whole new golf course, though. 2019 was a major overhaul, and it's kind of restored some of, the original Donald Ross bunkers or whatever the hell that kind of stuff means. But all I know is it's beefy, and they did take out a lot of trees because they had to make room for basically all the show that comes with a major championship. You're going to have tens of thousands of people there every day, hospitality tents, the PGA Tour and that whole setup, because people got to remember the PGA Tour originally was, part of the PGA. It was all one thing. And then the touring pros kind of spun off in I'm not going to say live-esque, gesture, but they decided they needed to go make more money and, actually compete. But we also see 20 of those PGA teaching pros, I guess you would call them, in the field this week, the top 20 finishers at the PGA Championship, or I think they say the PGA Club Pro Championship. It's had like 5 different names. So they'll be out there this week. I like this because I was just saying right before we got on, they've really been hammering this home. Whoever sprinkled this out there in the internet world did a good job, because this is the only major that is only for the pros, solely for the pros. And I think there's something to that given its tradition, because 1916 was the first PGA Championship, but we all know that major championship golf had been around for 50 years at that point. I think the first Open Championship was the mid 1860s. And up until this time, it was frowned upon to be a professional golfer. If you were a touring pro, or, you played for money, you were an exhibitionist. You weren't a true gentleman of the game. So there was a gravitas kind of lacking in the professional field until, I love this freaking name, Rodman Wanamaker. And that's what the Wanamaker trophy is named after. Also, the first guy got not just a trophy, but a big old diamond. They don't hand those out anymore, but they get fat ass checks. Rodman Wanamaker was the heir of a furniture department store family. And I guess he was enthralled with the game. He invited some folks out to it's like the Y. Oh, it's going to drive me nuts. Where is it? Wykagil? Wykagil. The Wykagil Country Club in New Rochelle, New York. And they had a conversation. They said, all right, let's make some things official. Bada bing, bada boom. We have another major championship. Now, I don't think it carried the weight that we give it originally, given where it kind of came from. But in the early days, it was match play. And Walter Hagen famously won 5. Jack has 5 as well. Tiger's got 4 and a couple of close calls, most recently when Brooksy went back to back. But Walter Hagen we've talked about this before on the show. He was the king of the gimme. That's how he got a lot of his PGAs, is early in these match play matches, he would just give his opponent pretty much anything, especially if it was just for a half. And then when they would be coming down the back 9, He just make them put everything out. Nerves kick in. They haven't had as many strokes. And that was kind of one of his secrets to success. So I'm looking forward to hearing about what your secrets to success are this week. How are you doing?
I'm doing about as well as my right eye.
Your eye looks awful. For those of you who listen to this later, it looks like you got stung by a bee. And
I wish I could even know what it is. It feels like there's something under my eyelid, and it keeps moving if I try to get it out, and I can't. I haven't been able to see it yet. I can't get it out. And it's just it's so frustrating. But yes,
I don't spend much time on the TikToks. Not like you and my roommate, but I did an Instagram reel because I'm old as old AF as the kids used to say.
Yeah.
But it was every New Englander this time of year. The pollen's real, and then whatever extracurriculars you got going on. No, are you pumped for this week? Talk to me about the PGA Championship. What is your perspective on this? Where does it sit in your world of golf in your brain?
So, unfortunately, like you alluded to, in my world of golf, when it comes to the majors, it's definitely the forgotten one. I don't want to say forgotten one, but it's the Masters is the first. It's the big. It's its own. The Masters is the Masters. The U.S. Open, same thing. The Open Championship, going over to Europe, that's all got its own thing. The PGA Championship just kind of, I hate to say it, but it does just kind of exist. But now that we now have a few years under our belt of it being earlier in the year now, being sandwiched in between the Masters and the U.S. Open, I think it's about time we do start looking at it a little bit differently with more respect, because I think the players are going to start as well. Not that the players never got up for this tournament before. I'm not saying that it's a major. They got up for it.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, tennis has the Australian Open. There's Wimbledon. We were also Western centric and Anglo-American centric. But yeah, no, your point's valid. And I was actually just going to say, I mean, run the take back. I was chirping about how the Masters is the best. Because look at this leaderboard, and it's such an elite group of champions. And we got a big ass field. I think it's 155, 156 players when it's maxed out. And if you look at how these folks get here, there are some ceremonial spots. We saw that John Daly, because when you win, you're there for life. We saw Phil with his slick back hair, chatting Colin Morikawa up. I would love to know. Actually, the voyeur in me would love to know how Phil's being received this time, because remember the Masters, it was all, he didn't say shit. He's out there schmoozing, he's posing. And I think he's doing it, to thumb his nose at the PGA Tour, honestly. And I don't blame him for it. When you got to take your shots when they come in front of you. Mm-hmm. But, the top 70 basically in the FedEx Cup points they're in. I mean, really, they call it the PGA Championship points ranking, but it's pretty much the FedEx Cup points. The last two Ryder Cups, all the past PGA champions. We talked about the top 20 at the Club Pro. So, I mean, this might actually be the most quote unquote elite field in professional golf, save maybe the Players Championship, because I think basically the Players Championship is kind of like this qualification, but only touring pros. I mean, I'm going to agree with myself that I think we need to start giving this thing a little bit more love. Sadly, though, and I think this is just, speculation, they'll figure this out, but I was reading that this might be the last time it's going to be in any of these northern courses for quite some time, because the weather, it's almost too chilly. It might be 30s and 40s in some of these mornings when these guys are warming up out there, and people are talking about it. But then again, shut up.
So Rochester is not crazy far from we are right now. But the mornings, it's been nice up here right now. Give it a chance, golfers. Come on. It's been nice.
It's on the Great Lakes. It's really cold. It sucks. Actually, it's not on the Great Lakes. I'm thinking of Buffalo.
I was going to say, I didn't think it was that close to the lakes. But
I know. I taught world geography, all right? Not U.S. geography. Let's get with it, though. You posed an interesting question, because there are some unique things about the PGA Championship, such as your first divot and pivot.
Yeah, so
the divot and pivot. Hold on, divot and pivot. That's the name of the show. The name of the segment is Divot or Pivot.
Yes, you nailed it now. Yeah, no, because this is the only tournament where the golfers are allowed to use rangefinders. So my question is kind of two-part, in that in your own game, are you in or divot or pivot on using a rangefinder? And second, should this just be allowed blanketed across the tour, or is it fine to just use it sparingly once or twice here and there? Because I don't have one. I've actually never used one myself on the course. Now I've used like
for your game.
Yeah, probably because my
No, I'm
distances really
serious.
don't matter. Honestly, I hit them so inconsistently.
I mean, I have not pulled mine out yet this season. I do have one. I do believe in them. They're great, especially not just for pin seeking. I mean, it can, what is it to carry that bunker over there? How far away is that tree that,
Sure.
that I gotta stay under? I mean, most of all, yeah, it's, how far am I from the hole? But then people forget you're not trying to fly it there as an amateur. You need to take 5-10 yards off. And this is me speaking to myself. I had a couple of these shots last week where I flew it pin high and it just rolled right off the bat. Couldn't get up and down. It was a very, very, very sad time in my life. So yeah, I use one. I don't use it all the time. As a matter of fact, right now I'm relying on the USGA app, the GIN app, because it also has the laser maps for the greens, the heat maps, which does help when you're planning out shots and where do you want to land the ball, will it roll there,
which is another good point, because that could just replace the rangefinder.
It essentially has, because I'm not trying to throw darts. I'm just going middle green, front green, back green. Like, where am I trying to finish it? So then if I the pin's in the middle, anything outside of a wedge, I'm thinking trying to like land it 5 yards shorter. So anyways, yes, I own one. I like that they can use them this week. I don't see, there's people out there, they just outlawed those laser books for the tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to go back to having their own, whatever topographical maps they had, but they used to have those like down to the whatever 10th degree of tilt, and it was really useful. And they got rid of that. I don't understand that kind of stuff, handicapping these guys. Like, why not just let them use all the tools at their disposal as long as it's not slowing the game up? Let them use it. I say let them use it and let these guys see how low they can go. I mean, the game continues to develop, and they're going to keep making these courses harder and longer. And I do think that we're going to start seeing some sunsets on, I mean, it happens all the time, old venues. I mean, hell, the Donald Ross course at French Lick, that hosted a PGA back in like the early 1930s. That's not a championship caliber golf course by any modern definition. It's a very nice course and Donald Ross greens and all that kind of stuff. But the Pete Dye course out there is exactly what I'm talking about. It's a next generation, with the same kind of feel. And so I think when you and I are still kicking, we're going to see some of these Tiger Woods designed courses. I really wish Michael Jordan would get into it and have Grove 23 host one. But mark my words, he's going to lobby hard to get a Ryder Cup there. There are few non-golf professionals in the world, big fans of the game that are bigger fans than Michael Jordan. And he's always at the Ryder Cups. He's all, with chomping his cigar, wearing those stupid ass hats backwards. But I would love to see a Ryder Cup at Grove 23, or Slaughterhouse 23, as Ricky told us they call it. Oak Hill hosted a Ryder Cup in 95. I saw a quote earlier from Sevi where he said, he's like, I took out more turf than anything else. I didn't win a point for my tournament or for my team. But also, speaking of international players, Gary Player, his opinion, why is he's really just trying to piss off the Augusta National Green Jackets? Because did you see what he said this week?
I didn't. No, I missed it. What did he say?
Oh, I love the PGA. Great championship. And I don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. for some bullshit tee shot.
Did he really?
I'm whether he said bullshit or stupid, I can't remember.
But still,
on that. But the sentiment is the same. Some stupid, one of the biggest honors in golf, I think. And you're lucky to still be doing it. That said, I don't know the man personally, and maybe he's just a brash guy. And people who know him would be like, "That's scary," straight shooter.
Yeah, little bit of breaking news just hit my phone here, golf related.
Talk to me, Goose.
You'll probably know this name more than I'm going to mess up the pronunciation here. Marlene Hagi-Vossler died at 89 years old, won 26 times on the LPGA Tour, and was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2002.
Rip.
I didn't know if you knew the name.
I don't know
personally, but I know you sometimes have those random historical facts, even from the LPGA as well. So
Shirley Spork is probably my favorite LPGA name, and she was one of the original 13 founders, and that's what I was just looking up. If I don't think Marlene was, otherwise they would have mentioned that in there. But like Patty Berg, Babe Saharias, and Shirley Spork, there's a wonderful documentary called The Founders. We should do a book club style screening of that.
That'd be fun.
Screening.
We can go through some of those that list we did a while back of the greatest golf movies of all time that we didn't even know of as well. We'll mix those in there.
Phantom of the Open
stuff.
Did
I
you
haven't
ever watch
it? I haven't watched it yet, but
it's
still in my head
to
do that
movie. It's fun. It is fun.
Still there. So the other information I guess we can talk about this week is
the only other thing.
No, there's more. But Rory McIlroy was asked about Liv this week and told he would no longer be commenting on the Liv Tour.
That's fair.
Oh, it's definitely fair. But seeing how outspoken he was before and how he was kind of leading that charge, do you think this is more of the PGA just laying down its arms and going to push forward as that do their thing only and worry about that only? Or is this Rory, just from a personal standpoint, getting his focus back on just playing golf himself?
Both. I mean, you talk about Jay Moynihan hasn't commented on this in forever. I mean, he even went as far as to be like, listen, we issued statements about that last year. We're moving on. We're doing our thing, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think that's just kind of it. I don't think anybody got to him. Maybe he just decided I'm going back to golf. If you also saw Tiger sent him a little text and said, hey, buddy, and he noticed something in his swing when he was watching the Wells Fargo. So Rory just spent some time at the Godfather's house. Maybe that was part of their conversation too, where he's like, hey, just move on, just get the fuck back with it. Like, you only have so many years left doing this, stay focused. You've done your, and he's done his job. He's been that standard bearer. He won when the tour needed him to win. And then he came out and he said what he said. DJ coming off of a win on Liv. I think that's going to be a sneaky guy to keep an eye on. And I will say that, part of the fun of a major championship week is having those Liv guys back. I'm going to, instead of shit on Dan Rappaport, I'm going to, praise his Monday rap. I was listening to him talk because I love the guy's writing, I love his opinions. I like his takes. They're thought out.
Sure.
He does a good job. So, and he was making a good point earlier where Liv is basically just a handful of really good golfers, and that's fine. There's not a whole lot to the individual game. They literally are trying to sell team golf as an idea, and it does feel forced. And I didn't even know they were. I haven't tuned in
I haven't either
at all this season, because to his point, there's no story there. I mean, he's like, the only positive is if you're a golf junkie just for sheer watching highlights. Yeah, they show a lot of golf shots. Okay, cool. The team concept is overplayed. The announcers feel like they're forcing it. All they're talking about is what a great energy and what a great vibe. Okay, and then so the idea that they're going to be able to sell these teams and that's where they're going to try to make their $1 billion or whatever they put into these salaries back is just wild to me. And I do think that these contracts are going to run out and these guys are just going to try to come back to the PGA Tour.
Which I don't think they have to.
Yeah, it'll be whatever it is. But I do like that, getting some of these names back because I enjoy watching Cam Smith sit there and drain 25 footers all day. I love seeing DJ. He's just a freak. And Phil's always great to have around, for shits and giggles. So whatever. I mean, we can call a truce for a week, but I don't even know if it's a truce. To your point, I think everybody's just kind of like, all right, we're done with it, because we're going to blink and it's going to be spring 24 and we're going to have the indoor golf league going on Monday nights. And then all of a sudden it won't be too long before there will be an extra team event like kind of thrown in there. We already have 2 of them in a season. I think they will try to maybe kind of figure out if there's anything worth plugging at there, but no, to your point, I think it's just all right, back to work, and we're gonna do our thing.
Yeah, it does feel like most of the division narrative is now only being pushed by trolls. Really, it seems like everyone's kind of backed off now. We haven't heard much from the players themselves.
Might not even be trolls, might be bots. I saw a headline earlier where Chief of Morale over here, like 50% of web traffic right now is being driven by bots.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that means
It's not surprising, I
like
guess.
half of the 24 people watching us right now aren't even people. It's like half of a computer processing chip just tuned in because, we said a couple keywords early on and it latched onto it. It's a really sad world.
Well, and if when you are watching this on Rumble, because we stream to Rumble as well, and you're just catching us slightly later than our normal time, we apologize. This some sort of issue with
Fire the intern.
The show getting to Rumble right now. It's all set up. It's just not working right. So at some point, it is going to be the full recording will be over there. So if you listen to us now on there, thank you for listening to us anyways. And sorry for the time not being spot on at 8 o'clock as it always is.
Who are you talking to? Oh, that's right. We're live.
But when they are listening, that's why when they do get to listen, I apologize that they had to catch it later.
I'm not focused.
That's okay. That's okay. And before we get into all of this week's picks, because look, we crushed it last week. Not only did we, so I think both of our head-to-head lineups had 5 or 6 make the cut. But for the most of the picks that we had on the show as a whole made the cut, including both of us saying Jason Day would win. And what he goes out there and crushes it. So happy to see him back in the winner's circle. So we're going to try to pick this week's winner as well. But that sorry, go ahead.
Before you go any further, not only did we crush it, and I appreciate you saying we there, Goose, because it was a good week. That Jason Day pick launched me 6 spots up in my other league's playoff ranking. I'm back in the chase. 75%. So I think something like 20 of the 26 people had Scheffler. I had Day, only one. So shouts. For you kids listening, I'm raising the roof.
And what we like to say on the show, that is leverage, my friend.
Leverage.
Ownership, leverage.
So yeah, it was a good week, and it's because I trusted the numbers. I didn't try to outsmart myself. Now, some tough calls coming up here. I will tell you the number one. Just a little teaser here. The number one ranked out in my model, absolutely playing. Might have to do 4 or 5 different lineups just because when the number spits something this valuable back at you, you gotta put it out there and see what happens.
I have a feeling our models might be slightly different this week because my model unfortunately followed pretty closely to salary, which always annoys me when that happens. Because that's just doesn't seem fun to me.
Then you're going to be a little jelly of what my model.
Yeah, it sounds like I might like your model a little bit better this week.
A little model envy.
But before we get into the ins and outs of that, let's take a look at some. It's been a little while since we've updated you guys on our head-to-head matchup scores this season so far. So I went back, looked at the last few that we haven't updated you on, added them all together, and we are within 20 points of each other. I have a slight 20-point lead over Bud here, but we have been neck and neck pretty much all season. We've each had like 1 or 2 weeks where we've blown each other out and then come back and pull it back close after that. So 67-30 for me, 67-10 for Bud so far in the season. We are still early in the season, and we will continue this on and see where we land at the end. But that is where we lie on DK right now. And yeah, this is going to be it's interesting. I want to look at as we get into this. There was some of the stats that didn't seem to be up yet. Are they still? So some of the normal stats I go for weren't up this week, and I don't know why.
Ooh.
So I had to change my theories a little bit here.
All right, before we get into theories, though.
Yeah.
Oak Hill Country Club itself.
Yes.
Third one of these, like we talked about 10 years ago, is the last one. It's had 3 U.S. Opens, a couple U.S. AMs, a Ryder Cup, the aforementioned 95 Ryder Cup. But this seems to be a bigger beast of a course. 7,400 yards, par 70. The par 5s are no joke. There's really only one, they would speakable scoring opportunity, and it's a drivable par. Get the eggs out of your mouth. It's a drivable par 4, but it's uphill to a protected green where most guys are just going to lay back and try to wedge it in. And so, I mean, I don't think we're going to see a lot of low numbers. I think it's going to be, you're either going to have somebody hitting it incredibly well or just scrambling their ass off, or a little combination of both. So Oak Hill, it's going to be back, bent grass greens. So if you're factoring that into your model, Basically, you want to look at the biggest, longest, beefiest courses that are par 70 with bent grass and build it from there. So when you want to get into this now, or do we have a promo to run? I don't know how it works. I'm just here for morale.
No, we are definitely going to hear from Underdog first, because I know personally I've already set at least one Underdog lineup for this week. I'm going to get in and set a couple more before Thursday's tee times. But get over to Underdog, use discount code DIVPIV, DIVPIV, and they'll match your first deposit up to $100, which is free money, people. If you've never been on to Underdog before, that first deposit, you're going to get it matched up to $100. So get on there.
$3.99.
Do that and get in on the snake drafts for all your sports, but specifically get on there for the PGA, because we're winning money over here on Underdog, and you got to get part of that. So let's take a quick chance. We'll hear a word from Underdog.
Contagious.
We will be back. It's contagious, just like whatever the hell is in my eye. I'm gonna lose my mind, but I will be right back after this break.
Underdog Fantasy is here to save your post-fantasy football season blues. The easiest place to play and win with the Underdog Fantasy app. Get up to 20 times your money in a single night with our Pick'em contests. Grab some insurance when setting your picks and win even when one pick fails. Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. Sit gingerbread, good girl.
I think I made it worse.
Hey, do you remember? You remember there's something about Mary with Brett Favre?
Yes.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
You look like the guy he's got the stop messing with it. Stop.
I can't, because it's every time I blink it moves but stays under my eyelid and I can't get it out.
So we're 26 minutes and 49 seconds before the first camp reference, but summer of 2006. I get up to Maine, super early. I'm up here like May 1st and just helping out, get the camp ready. I had just finished my first year of teaching and I was like, I'm not sticking around in hot ass Florida. So I get up to Maine and I get poison ivy all over my face. And so that's exactly, I know where this is going, and I feel for you. So those of you listening, just go watch There's Something About Mary, and there's a couple scenes in there that'll remind you of Andrew, but the crush at the end. Speaking of
what?
Nothing. I had nowhere to go with that. So let's talk golf. What are you looking at this week? I want you to give me your key three, which is going to turn into, I don't fucking know how many. You always go overboard. And then I might surprise you with mine.
Yeah, so putting and approach, I feel like I don't even have to say those each week. No, those are staying in here. But specifically for this course, let me pull this back up again, so I want to get the stat right.
I'm going to pull out my stats.
Here, there's a higher average of 3 putts per round here than there is on your average tour event. So with that being said, I want guys who are putting it better right now than most, so that hopefully we can avoid some of those 3 putts. And then approach, that's been in there for pretty much all season, so we're going to keep it there. The other one I want to get in there is strokes gained off the tee. Driving accuracy is about half as it is here compared to every other tour event. So we want guys who are going to find the fairway. We want guys who are going to find the green in regulations. It's the same thing. It's harder to hit these greens than most tour events. So we have those. And then, of course, because I like to mix in some specifics, par 4 is 400 to 450. That's the most common hole on this course. And then strokes gained par 5 as well. You alluded to it earlier. The par 5s are a monster here, are beasts. So I want guys who are going to hold their own on those.
I like what you said there. You didn't say take advantage of them, because there is no taking advantage of this course. Yes. I do think that we're going to be in for a nice humbling ride. I don't think we're anything like Shinnecock a couple years ago. They don't do that to these courses. Also, at this time of year, you really can't get them too, really too much like the summertime hot, where you can get them freaking just burnt out and rolling. So yeah. I like what you said there. I do think it was overboard and a little too much detail. You overthink these things, but then again, hey, what do I know? I'm the golf guy and you're beating me. So I kept it simple. I've got my key 3, but It is a major week, so I tossed in a fourth, and you'll see why here in a second.
Go.
Calm down, Junior. You mentioned something pretty smart earlier, and we're talking about off the tee, and I got strokes gained off the tee. This is a long course, so who is going to be actually not just holding their own off the tee? Who's going to be using that to their advantage? You think about guys like John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler it's kind of his driver failed him on the back nine. I want to bring that up just because it benefited me, but I don't take that lightly. I mean, he's a bomber and he knows what he's doing with that thing. So Rory, John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, guys like that, people who actually the driver's a weapon. It's definitely not. So I saw Kiz pop up in my model. And he was triple digits, and I thought that's kind of where you belong on this. Like, that's what he talks about. He's like, man, I'm not going to bomb it out there. I can't hit it like these guys. So I got strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach. We talk about how it is the singular. If you had to pick one statistic out of them all that truly measures how well you're playing, it's strokes gained approach. So we got strokes gained approach and strokes gained off the tee. I skipped putting. And here's why.
Okay.
And here's why.
Hit me with it.
I went proximity 175 to 200.
Okay.
And then I added proximity 200 plus.
Makes sense for the par threes.
The par threes. And like you pointed out, almost every single hole is going to be a 175 to 200 shot.
Sure.
So my theory being whoever is just dialed in from that range, if they're in position enough, they're going to be in a position and they'll convert. These guys, somebody in that crowd will catch a hot putter if you're hitting it that close.
Yes, that's true.
One would think these guys are that good. And I will say back to my 31 putt massacre of my ego a couple weeks ago, thing that kept on rolling in my mind is that's where I have not spent enough time is in the lab, because one of the guys that I was playing with shot 79. He didn't have a great day like myself, but he made like 7 or 8 putts from 10, 12, 15 feet to save these pars. And that's where I was lacking. I'm actually thinking about changing up the putter this weekend just for shits and giggles. Because it's got to be the implement. It can't be the player, right? It can't be my fault that I played that poorly. But so there we go. Proximity, approach, and strokes gained off the tee. And I got to say, I didn't hate what my model gave back to me.
I can't wait to see it, because I'm not exactly in love with my model this week. If I'm to the point where I'm considering making some changes live here in the show, because I don't necessarily love what it's. I don't hate them all, but it's in my experience doing these models. Anytime that my model too closely resembles the salary structure, then I'm not doing enough to.
Why are you worried? And I'm, by the way, that came out awful. I'm not trying to criticize. I'm trying to understand. I'm literally
just thinking, like, compared to all the times that I've gone with that model. For some reason, I don't know exactly why, but for some reason, are the weeks that I do worse than when my model spits out.
So you're saying when you're, it's almost like, in a weird way, it makes you go, fuck, my thinking's too conventional. I can't get any leverage. Nothing stands out. Nothing's creative. And you kind of have to think outside the box.
Exactly.
I would love to see the stats on how chalky winners are and how close this all runs out. And that's out there somewhere. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I want my model to do the unconventional thinking for me.
And by the way, my model doing the unconventional thinking for me allowed me to free my mind and spend a bunch of dough on somebody that my model says isn't going to work out, but my gut says you got to go with it.
Sure. No, I get that.
Look at that teaser.
I get that. I can't wait to hear it. So look, we'll do it as we always do. Let's start in the salary range, because there's some. We have an 11K range this week, because we got both Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm up over 11K. Rahm 11.4, Scotty 11.2. And see, this is what I'm talking about. My model spit out Scotty is number 1 and John is number 2. And I hate that. It just bugs me.
I'm not far off. My model gave me Rahm at 4 and Scotty at 9. I mean, so that's not. It's still single digits, but then again, those guys are not going to be anything but single digits. You look at their rankings across the stats. John Rahm is leading the tour in just about everything right now. So I get it. And by the way, if truth gun to my head, I would play Rahm over Scheffler just because of how shaky Scheffler was down the stretch last week.
Yep.
There's always, pardon me, good Lord. There's always that bounce back factor too. Champions like that usually don't lay eggs back to back unless they're going down a deep, dark hole. And Scheffler's won a couple times already, so I don't see that happening. So I would give Jon Rahm the nod there. I think he's also on, not on a mission. All these guys are on a mission. I'm not going to be cliche about it. He's on a heater this year. He is absolutely killing it, and betting against him is stupid. Not going to spend the money for him because I like what else I got going on. Yes. And I think the ownership there would just be what are those guys at?
Yeah, so
17 and 15.
Rahm's at 17, exactly. Yeah, Rahm 17, Scheffler 15. Yep. Yeah, which is crazy, but then that brings up Rory McIlroy sitting there at 10,700, who's sitting at only around like 10% right now, ownership wise. And something's still telling me not to play Rory right now. I know he got off to a hot start this season, but missing the cut at the Players, missing the cut at the Masters, and then a T47 at the Wells Fargo. I'm not seeing it with my eye right now. Like something looks off.
Oh, hold on. Pause.
But like you said, he did
stop. Run that back. You're not what?
Seeing it with my eyes. I said eye, didn't I? Eyes.
Yeah.
I forgot the.
Which eye are we talking about, Andrew?
Seeing it with my if we're talking about this eye right here, then no wonder why something looks off. But
in case you were wondering, I have seen your baseball. Not the same character, same movie reference. I hear what you're saying. And you know me, I like to go against the grain a little bit. Shouts to Andrew Perlov, DP show alum, because he's watching, I'm sure. But I like to be a little contrarian and go with my gut here. I have him highlighted. He's not in every lineup. I think he's not going to make my main lineup against you because unless all of a sudden I feel squirrely or I see something on social media, because he's a true champion of all champions. And he did just like I said, he had a sit down with the Godfather recently.
Well, and that's the interesting part.
And sometimes we talk about strokes gained home life.
Yep.
And that kind of juju right there. And I'll tell you, my model spits him out as second because you do look at what I'm valuing, and it's length. And Homeboy's got length, not girth though. He's got a nice V shape to him. But he can hit it a mile and he can launch it. I mean, he can, as I would say, hoist. You okay there, Bubba?
Yes.
He can hoist those irons way up into the air. And when he's putting well, I mean, any of these guys, that's cliche too. When any professional touring pro, when the putter is hot, it seems everything else will follow. So I've got him highlighted, but in the 10K range, I got to go with Brooksy. It's major championship Brooksy. He was so close at Augusta. He's back. I do think he is back, and it
does seem like he is. It does.
And so he ranks out 48th in my model, but then again, our models are based on PGA Tour statistics.
Exactly. So you do have to look at these live players a
little skewed,
a little bit closer with your own kind of judgment on some of these things for sure. I like that.
We're not breaking down tape on the live tour.
No. But look, so the Rory part is a risk because he could come out here and do good, like you said, with whatever he talked to Tiger about it, figured out. And if you can get early season Rory at around 10-11% ownership, that is fantastic. That is amazing. But the guy I feel even more confident about playing in that 10K range is Morikawa this week.
Why are you confident in Colin Morikawa? I knew you were going here. Why are you confident in Colin Morikawa?
Because he's one of those guys. Like you said, like you said earlier in the show that like 175 to say like 250 are those guys who can drop it in like a lawn dart. That's Colin. The one thing that's been failing him hasn't been. The numbers would disagree with you over his past 24 rounds in this field.
Numbers.
He's top 5 in strokes gained approach. He's top 10 in strokes gained par 5s. Top 10 in par 4s, 400 to 450 as well. The one thing that has been holding him back recently has been the putter. And like you said, these guys can turn that on at any point they need to. This feels like for 10,000.
All right. I just looked at the numbers. You're okay.
Yes. And I didn't even mention the best number yet. Can you guess what the number? Well, what the group, the category of number is going to be here? It's gonna. Cause I just bungled that. It's gonna be ownership because he's under 7% projected
I
ownership
saw
right
that.
now, which is fan-freaking-tastic.
I don't care. I've got him blacklisted until he comes out of the closet. And let me rephrase that. He comes out of whatever hole he's been in recently. And it's a mental thing. I mean, you are right. He's a true champ. A mental thing. He's a PGA champ. He's been here before. And sometimes you get into those familiar feelings and everything starts clicking again. And I will agree with you that while I'm a big fan of Rory hoisting his irons, I mean, shit, when TaylorMade did their promos a couple of years ago, they took all the players and they put them in scenarios where they're most comfortable and they gave them challenges, yada, yada, yada. And his was, we understand that you can hit your 6-iron like most tour pros hit their wedge. And he's like bouncing it off the flagstick. So yes, I agree. He is that guy, or as the kids would say, he is him this week. But I don't think he is going to be him this week. I do think that I like that we disagree on that. In that little 10K sandwich, you can have the Morikawa. I'll keep the bread.
That's fine. That is fine. But that brings us down into the 9K range. So this is where things I think might get.
This is fun. 9 and 8K are fun.
Because this is what, for what I'm seeing here on the numbers and like the projected ownership numbers, it seems like there's still a good amount of people that are paying, like we said, 15% roughly for Rahm and Scheffler up there. But the 10K range does seem to be going largely ignored, with Rory around 10, 11, with Colin Morikawa under 7, and with Brooks around 11, 12%. So it looks like a lot of people are either starting up high, then filling in low, and then they're landing back in the 9K range here, or maybe they're just starting in the 9K range because there's a lot of ownership in here. We got Tony Finau around 19%. We got where was it?
Xander's at 20. Patrick Cantlay's at 16. I was just going there too. Yeah. Where those there, I mean, there's some hot chalky potential there, because when you talk about people who are throwing darts with their irons, X going to give it to you. The kid, that's one of his things. If you ever saw videos of him doing drills with his dad, he would, he'll sit there and hit irons with his eyes closed, or his dad, he would take a backswing. His dad would tell him to hold it, and then he would just do different timings in his own head. His dad would then say, all right, swing, and he would finish it. And he's flushing these things. These guys are robots in their machines, and when they're dialed in, they're dialed in. Patrick Cantlay, it is when he has one of those big strokes, those big putting strokes that when he gets it rolling, it's very smooth. We saw it in the FedEx Cup chase down a couple of years ago. I do like Xander, but I'm not going to eat that kind of chalk, because
it's too much.
There's something weird and sneaky about Jordan Spieth at 5%. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't think that it was a wrist injury. I think it was just a rest injury a couple weeks ago. I mean, let me give that. In fairness to him, these guys like NFL players, there's always something they can point to. Always,
they're mostly always playing someone injured.
Yeah.
A
different definition of injured. I'm not going to go with him though, because he doesn't fit, like you say, he doesn't fit my eye. And I wasn't busting your balls. That is the right way to say it. It doesn't fit my eye, but when you've got your eye, it's a little different than my sparkling blues tonight. So he doesn't fit my eye with this course, because he's a scrambler. He's left and right. He's going to spray it all over the place. And you can't win. I mean, I guess you can win a major championship. We saw that him do it at the Open, where he was hitting it over the TV towers and stuff. But I do think it's going to be much more of a pure, consistent game. For this. So I would love to throw him some love, because that's great leverage, for a major championship. But then again, he could also get on the driving range Thursday morning and tweak this wrist, and I could be eating crow next week. So in that 9K range, who do you like? Who's tickling your fancy?
So the guy in this 9K range that I am gonna put out for would be Patrick Cantlay, 9,700, around 16% ownership. I like his game right now. He sets up well for he's number one on the field off the tee, and number one in the field on par fives. So I really like what he's bringing to the table for this course. I think this course fits him well. So give me Patrick Cantlay there. And then also lower in the 9K range, Victor Hovland.
Victor.
At 9,100, under 10% projected ownership right now.
He's going to break through soon.
Yeah, and he's He's one of those guys that I know we say it about so many guys all the time.
He's one of those guys.
He's one of those guys that puts together 3 fantastic rounds, but then has one round that's not necessarily terrible. But
I mean, he was in position at Augusta this year.
Yeah, but then it's just that one round that is just too pedestrian to get him over that hump.
Great
to
word.
Win.
Great word.
Thank you.
Sundays, Sundays are for sprinters. I like that, and mostly because that's not at all who I have in my 9K range. I got 2 guys highlighted for consideration because they both rank out in my top 10 and I got them highlighted for different reasons. One is Mr. Tony Finau. If I've got to eat some chalk, I will eat it with Tony because he's coming off of a win recently, and my model's got him 7th.
That's also so much chalk, though. He's right around 20% as well. So much chalk.
Hey, I can afford it. And you'll see why in a little bit.
Okay.
But the other one that I got, he's so 7 and 8 right there is Cam Young, and Cam Young single digits in the green for projected ownership. Guy can fucking bomb it. There's a video recently. You should put it up. We got to put it up on our Divots and Pivots feed or reshare it, where it was like a challenge. He would take his backswing and they would call out a shot. Did you see that? Like high fade, low cut.
Yes,
and then he would try to hit it. He made like 5 of 7 of them. Mm-hmm. And one of them was medium straight. And I just thought to myself, like, that's kind of how I see myself, just a medium straight.
Because I've seen a challenge where Justin Thomas did something similar with that, but they were calling out different yardages he had to hit with his 6-iron. Oh, no, his 4-iron.
Yeah,
he could only use his 4-iron, and they're telling him 87 yards. Or
they did it with Scheffler. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, that's what we talk about, the difference between decent golfers, good golfers, and like these guys. Even some of the guys that I'm going to be playing with in a couple of weeks at, I think it's Andover Country Club.
Oh, yeah.
Is where the Mass Am qualifier that I got redemption song. I'm playing with a couple of guys who one is a plus 1.3 and the other one's like a 0.8. And so it's like one of those things where, okay, I mean, still that's the mental game where that doesn't affect how I swing the club. But the point I'm going to say is even as good as they might be and as I, aspire to be, the tour pros, it's a different fucking level. Campfire guitarist versus, Jimi Hendrix. And so Cam Young's one of those dudes who can bomb it when he's dialed in. He's so close to winning some of these big tournaments, rookie of the year, and he's going to break through. So I'm going to like me some Cam Young. And if I might do a lineup with Tony in there just because I do believe in him.
Okay, I like it. Let's keep trucking forward into the 8K range though, because we want to make sure we get all you guys listening and watching here as many picks as we can.
Girls.
I said guys. Well, you know what I meant. I meant guys as a
asshole.
I know. I can't say cancel my ass, I guess.
Fuck it, hang it up. 2 seasons in, we're canceled.
But let's get into the 8K range because I'm curious to get. I'm pretty sure I know your take on this, but because we've talked about it before. But Jason Day coming off the win this past week, are you interested in playing him this week?
No, not at all.
So even though he actually does shape up quite well for this course, you're just still is the hangover because I feel the same way. Honestly, I want to play him because he's been so good this year, but it does almost. I'm scared that he's going to feel that weight of I finally won again lifted off his shoulder, and he's going to lose just a little bit of edge to him for this 1 week only.
If that projected ownership dropped down in the single digits, I'd take a look at it. But at 12, 13%, I liked, and it's not, and actually the funny thing is my take on the day question is not whether or not I like him. Yeah. It's whether or not, I'm going to play him. I'm just not going to play him because I like other things more. It's not like I'm like, oh, stay the fuck away. As a matter of fact, the points you just made, the guy can bomb it. He's in form, obviously. He's coming off, and he's won a PGA championship before. He falls into that kind of Justin Thomas. Nobody saw Justin Thomas coming last year. Nobody.
I know.
Like, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he shoots 7 under on the final day, and it's like, what? So Jason Day does have that firepower to do something like that. Now, we'll see. I hope they've got this freaking course tweaked, especially because Justin Thomas threw a little shade at it earlier in the press, and I love that he's real. But he made a good point. He's like, it snowed here like a month ago, so you do the math. Like this place can't be as kind of crisp as they're used to being challenged on.
Well, so I did see because I've been seeing a lot of guys like Ben Griffin have been posting a lot to TikTok and to Facebook, showing videos of them out with their practice rounds this week so far, and kind of critiquing the course as they go. And they have said that this course has been they haven't let anybody on the course yet this season. Obviously, like you said, it just snowed like a month ago. They probably weren't even open. But so no one's played on this course in the last 6 months. So
it's got to be immaculate.
So, but that it looked at the things Ben Griffin was saying was that the rough was long and sticky. It seems
that like that northeastern or northern bluegrass.
Yeah, so it feels like this is going to be the best possible scenario that they could have done, given the circumstances of the weather. They, whatever in the area. Like, I think the course is going to be in the best condition that it could have possibly been in.
This is where we need the guys from Plus Money Golf, because I'm sure one of them could tell me what's the over under right now for finishing score, and I got to think it's got to just be 9.5. Right, like it's got to be. It's got to be
talking. I'll look it up.
It's got to be double digits. Oh, perfect. While you're looking it up, I'll go into my 8K range.
Yeah, so let's keep it going.
We already took Jason Day off the board for me. Now,
yep.
Dustin Johnson is automatically highlighted because he's coming off a win, and maybe he's a little pissed off for not getting love. He likes to win. I'm just gonna go out there and play my golf, and it'll take care of itself. I'm not really worried about anything. Bullshit. These guys are super jazzed, and so he's coming off a win from Liv, and he might be thinking like, I got a little something to prove. And he's got two of the four major championships, and maybe he's thinking to himself, my career's not over. I can still do this. So I got him highlighted, but he's 26th in my model. That's not too deep. That's not too outside the box to be playing that. But right below him, Max Homa ranks out 19th in my model at 8,700. That's some pretty good value for Maxie.
Yeah, I like Max this week.
I like him because he too fits this course. Not in the sense that he's a bomber, but when he's tuned in and everything's clicking, he can hit it long. He's got all the shots, and if he's rolling it, he's rolling it. But the other two guys I like in the 8K range for different reasons. Shane Lowry ranks out 13th in my model, and he's a major champ, and he does fit this course. He does well at places like Bay Hill, where you've got to be able to have these long approach shots and roll it. But the other one is Tyrrell.
You took my guy there. Tyrrell is someone I'm very excited to play this week.
I'm very excited for Tyrrell too, and he's 45th in my model, so it's not a numbers play for me. It's a gut play because he's in form.
Yep.
I loved his interview when he got to the tower. I like what the PGA Tour is doing. They're bringing these guys.
I know. I'm loving that too.
It's very NBA, NFL, right? Like post game. Hey, tell me about what just happened, Tom. Well, but in golf, it's almost the equivalent of going into the clubhouse and having a beer. Instead of going having that post round drink, come talk to the fans real quick. And I love that John Rahm's like, oh, I will for sure be in a broadcast booth. By the time they do it, they'll be doing. What'd you say?
So he's all gung ho about it. Yeah.
I thought you said, don't call me Bubba. And I was like, what the fuck got into you, dude? Jesus. That is the eye taking over, the all-seeing eye. So I like Shane Lowry, but I love me some Tyrrell Hatton on a gut play this week. I don't hate Tommy Fleetwood. I just don't know if he's got the off the tee firepower to keep up all week. And that's such a weak cliche thing for me to say. But doesn't mean it's not true.
Because I'm not completely sold on Fleetwood, the fact that his ownership is close to 15%, that's the main reason. Like, if I'm not completely sold on him, I'm not going to pay that ownership price for him. But once we get down here into the 7K range, there is definitely some ownership leverage that I am going to be taking care of. And I'll start us off towards the top of the 7K range here, because I do like some guys mid and lower as well. But first and foremost, I do like Corey Connors this week. Coming off a T8 at the Wells Fargo, under 7% projected ownership, 7,900. He's that type of accurate long hitter off the tee that can take advantage of this course. So I like Corey Connors. And then I also like Taylor Moore at 7,800, also under 8% projected ownership. Look, he won the Valspar, and then from there, T39 at the Masters, T11 at the Heritage, and T27 at Wells Fargo. So Taylor Moore's been in good form this year. He's made his last 5 cuts at least, 20 of 27 cuts made this year. He ranks top 5 in putting, and he's still top 25 off the tee as well. So he's a guy that I think can go tee to green.
I don't disagree with Taylor
make
Moore. I think Taylor Moore did me good. Car ran good. There actually is a good Rick Run Good is
yes.
is a sports. But yeah,
he's good. Yeah, he was one of the first golf guys that I started watching before I entered the space myself. So, Rick Gelman is he's fantastic. Yeah, he's fantastic. I'd love to have him on the show. I've talked to him a couple times. He's a great guy.
Oh, Rick, let's do it. Talk to the caddy guy. Talk to our boy, the cat, Cutter the caddy. Sorry,
Cutter. Yes. You just call him Caddy Boy.
Caddy Boy, give me caddy. He would appreciate it, and then he would appreciate it, and he would have some incredibly off-color remark that would be funny as shit. Buy his book, by the way. It's worth it. After taking it, Caddy Boy. After taking a gander. I was about to say, after taking a gander, it's a great coffee table book for a man cave, a sports room, your actual living room, because it would catch people off guard. Wonderful, wonderful bathroom book, as they would say back in the hey kids, gather around. Before we had cell phones, people would take like magazines and books. There was like the bathroom reader and like the World Almanac and shit like that. Cutter the Caddy has a wonderful book, and it's funny as hell. Look him up.
Right here. Love. And just to give you a little teaser of what's in here, that's the type of stuff you can expect. Where Cutter says to the golfer, "You got a Joe Pesci, an ugly 4-footer." So it's the type of little quick one-liners that is fantastic in this book. It makes it fun reading, so definitely go check it out, like Bud's saying. Well, look, who do you have here in the 7K range? I know building my lineup right now, I have to dip into the 6K here at some point.
I want to make
sure we get there. So let's who you have in 7K here?
14th in my model, and he's from the live world, which means we're going to get some value, but he's still, I think, 10 or 12% owned. Joaquin Niemann, and at 79, that's a little pricey, so I might drop down and eat some chalk and get Wyndham Clark if I have to because of form.
Wyndham Clark, I know.
But when you see ownership that's 14, 15% in the 7K, that's not a ton of value. So we're going to go down a little further at 7,100. Siwoo Kim. Siwoo Kim is in form, so I don't care if he is chalky because the guy's a freaking winner, and he was doing really well. He was doing really well last week. And then Gary Woodland. When I saw Gary Woodland at 7,100 rank out third in my model, I gotta load up on that. So I do like Gary Woodland and his stinger. If you do remember, he won at Pebble. Now, he won his U.S. Open at Pebble, and Pebble is not abusively long, but it is abusive and it's rough. So you have to be accurate and long, because whether the course is long or not, these guys are so good that you've got to be long to put yourself in position, because over 4 days, your wedge will beat even Colin Morikawa's 6-iron over 4 days. So I like Gary Woodland at 7,100.
Yeah, and so when you said live guy, I thought you were actually going to go a different direction here, because this guy popped in my model and has fantastic projected ownership, and that's Abraham Answer at 7,500.
Oh, I don't hate that. He's
the
other Joaquin Niemann.
Exactly right. They're about the same size. But he's right now projected only 2.9% ownership. He has his last 3 appearances on tour being the Memorial, the Open, and the Masters. So only the big ones, really. And going back to last season, all top 40 finishes for him on tour. So he could be a guy that could pay off some value down here. But we do need to talk about the 6K range, because
why is that? Now, why is that?
Because I think we are, and I think a lot of other people are going to have to spend money up top, whether that 10K range or that chalky 9K range. It's going to have to happen. We're going to have to break some bank down here in the 6K range, and we're going to go back to 2 of my show favorites that I always mention on the show. It seems we're bringing them back. Adam Svensson, 6,600.
You
under 4%, under 4% projected.
He's your Akshay.
He's my Akshay.
He's your Akshay. I claim AB. I'm team AB all day.
That's fine, yeah. But Adam Svensson, I'm going back to him at 6,600. Then the other guy that I am going to take a shot on this week at 6,500, also under 3% projected ownership, is Nick Taylor. Who's an also
don't hate
good
that
form.
Just because Nick Taylor always seems to have his name up there early in the weeks, and all it takes is 1 week for somebody to break through. So here's what we've been talking about all week. Ranks out first in my model, and my numbers did not lie to me last week, so I'm going to go with it this week. Mr. Brendan Steele at 6,600. 7th in strokes gained approach, 9th in strokes gained off the tee, 4th in strokes gained proximity 175 to 200, and 5th 5th in 200 plus. This course, if there was ever a horse, a 6K horse for a course,
yep,
it's Brendan Steele. So there you have it, folks. You heard it here first.
Brendan.
Oh, and before we go any further, I'm sad that I can't have a couple of lineups with a 6K John Daly in it. This week he had to pull out. He got a knee replacement recently, and he said there's, the healing isn't there yet. He's got to wait a little longer. JD, we're with you. Speedy recovery, Holmes.
Still my favorite line I think ever this is a lot. So, but the current one in my head that is sticking as my favorite in my head right now is, you can't pull fat. That's why I'm never injured. It's been the one that keeps reoccurring in my head, but he's had so many that are just fantastic. So gotta love that. But look, guys, that is gonna do it for us here on Divots and Pivots tonight. Tune in shortly here. I would tell you the time, but you know what? The guys over at Plus Money Golf, they keep pulling an audible every time I tell you a time on this show that they're coming on.
Stick around.
Come on an hour, so stick around on either Rumble or on YouTube. Wait for them to be seen as live on Fantasy Sports Corporation because they're going to have all your betting knowledge that you need this week. I'm Andrew. This is Bud. We are Divots and Pivots, and we will see you next week to talk about how we crushed the PGA Championship. Have a good night, everyone. Shut up.